السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك، صلى الله عليك وعلى أمك وأخيك، صلى الله عليك وعلى التسعة المعصومين من بنيك، صلى الله عليك وعلى المستشهدين بين يديك. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. لتعجيل فرج صاحب الزمان رحم الله من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. We talked about parenting last night, and we talked about spouse selection, both by males or the brothers, as well as choosing or selecting or accepting the right husband by the sisters yesterday. Today I want to expand on the topic. Before I go into the topic, I made a mistake last night and I need to correct it, because I was going to explain this ayah, but I brought a hadith and I called that Allah in Quran said in my lecture. I corrected كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. It's a hadith by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not a verse of the Quran. I just, because I was to explain this one, and then I brought the hadith to explain the difference between engineering our kids and between nurturing our kids. And then that hadith was the most suitable. So coming back to today's lecture, I want to discuss three aspects of parenting. First of all, practical parenting. Practical parenting. Or parenting by example. Parenting by example. Secondly, the influences on the upbringing of our kids, because at the end of the day we're not the only influences. Thirdly, I want to talk about some tips, some, let's say, advice that I can share with you that some of you would like to try. Again, it's only suggestions. As I said before, I have kids myself, and I'm struggling myself. We all struggle, and that's why struggle in Islam is extremely encouraged, because that struggle, that strive to be better, to improve yourself, is what's needed. Now, it's upon us to do the effort, to put the effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the guide. We can't really, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, you will not guide those who you love, Allah guide who He wants. As simple as that. But doesn't that mean that we neglect our responsibility? Of course not. So our job is to do our best, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides happens. I'd like to start with the verse as a reminder to myself and then to my fellow parents. And by the way, this is relevant to your kids as well, and youngsters. So, as well as the youth. The youth, because it's a challenge that you're going to face soon. And of course, parents, because you're facing it already. And the youngsters, because you might actually get a point and help your parents in actually doing their job. Because the best helpers to the parents are the kids themselves. Trust me. See, the ayah starts by Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. We said any times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts by Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, He's talking to the believers. Because He's not saying Ya ayyuhan nas. Usually we have some ayahs that says Ya ayyuhan nas. If He talks Ya ayyuhan nas, He's talking to all humanity. If He talks Ya ayyuhal Muslim, He's talking to any Muslim. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. That means the people who are believers and amanu already. So you're already following the right path. Alright? Now if you're already following the right path, what's the advice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give you? He's talking to you directly, to me. So this is Allah directly talking to us. That's why we have a hadith, when you want Allah to directly talk to you, what do? Read Quran. If you want to talk to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you recite Quran. If you want Allah to talk to you, you recite Quran. So, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. That means all you who have believed. See, you who have believed. So not you who will believe, or you who have believed. Protect yourselves and your families from a fire. What's the description of this fire? Whose fuel is people and stones. What does it mean? It means if you don't protect your families, they will end up, or yourselves, meaning myself and every one of us, then you are risking that you will lose somebody in your family or yourself to the hell. And this hell, the fuel of this hell is people and stones, over which are appointed angels harsh and severe. They do not disobey Allah in what He commands them, but do what they are commanded. It's very important why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is unrelated to the topic, but it's very important because I want to remind especially young people. Allah in Quran sometimes talks very harsh. For example, this verse describes the hell, describes the angels as khilal, shidad. Why does He use this language? Because if you look at our society, for example, if you're driving, what's the best thing that works? You get a fine. Then you drive properly. You lose your points if you don't obey the signals. What happens? You then will obey the signals. We humans we need to be controlled that way. The laws, for example, you go and commit murder. You either face capital punishment in some countries, in some countries you would face imprisonment for life. Correct? For every single crime we commit, as a society, even as humans, we have put some sort of punishment. Why? It's a deterrence. It's a prevention measure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes has to use this harsh language so that He can encourage us. Because would any dad here or mom want their kids to ever burn their little finger with something hot, a hot surface? We would not. If a kid breaks his legs, just a leg, what happens to us? We rush to the hospital, the mom is in tears, the dad is really stressed, and it's something that can heal. So the fact is, it's a very harsh reminder. As a parent, when I read it, it's a harsh reminder for myself that be careful, your son might end up in hell. And guess what hell is? Described. He describes it in the same verse. So it's a very big encouragement that really pay attention to this stuff. Now, how can we protect ourselves and our families from the fire of hell? One, practical parenting. What does practical parenting mean? Practical parenting starts by myself. I obey the orders. I live a good life. I live an ethical life. I'll give you an example. You're sitting in your front yard and your neighbor is cutting his grass. And while he's cutting the grass, there's a lot of grass that's going in the air and flowing into your front yard. You get up, extremely angry, and you go and you start swearing at him. What you think you're doing is you're protecting your front yard because then you have to clean it. What you're effectively doing is teaching your little son how he should be treating his neighbors in the future. It's practical parenting. Every time you are turning on music at home, every time you are throwing a party at home, every time you're consuming alcohol, inshallah, now consumes alcohol here at home, you're teaching effectively your kids what to do. I said it yesterday and I'll repeat it here today. This has nothing to do with religious studies, these are actual statistics. The parents who are consumers of alcohol, especially alcoholics, the chances of their kids becoming alcoholic in the future is much, much higher than the mainstream. The parents who are smokers, the chances of their kids being smokers in the future is very high. Actually, the chain smokers, the risk of their kids even abusing substance in the future is higher. The parents who have domestic violence within their household, the chance of their kids being violent in the future is higher. The chance of the suicide of those kids is much higher. We're not even talking, religion now. We're talking about anybody, Muslim or otherwise. Practical parenting starts by me behaving the way I want my kid to behave. So by me being who I want my kid to be. And guess what? You know how it says, "Qu anfusakum"? It starts by what? Yourselves. A good practical example, and I'm sure all of you have seen it. When you are in a plane and you have a baby on your lap or you have kids with you, what does the instruction say? It says when the oxygen masks drop, make sure you put your own oxygen mask first and then you put the oxygen mask for your kid. Why? Because if you don't save yourself, can you save your kid? No. Because you might die before you see your kid safe. So it's very important always, and that's why the verse is very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in every single word that He chooses in the Quran, it's carefully crafted. And I say crafted, not just put there. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. So start with yourselves. With myself, I have to start. If I have bad habits, for example, I stay the whole night on my couch, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, and I'm watching TV, on the weekends sometimes I'm guilty of that. And a remote control in my hand, or just watching TV, what happens? My kid will most likely be a lazy person like me. If I'm doing sports, if I'm doing an activity, if I'm actually interacting with others, I'm not isolating myself from society, what happens to my kid? Most likely will follow suit. So it starts with oneself. That's practical parenting. Secondly, I want to bring a story of a scholar, of the advice he gives. There is a scholar in Qom called Sir Ali Khurasan. Possibly Sheikh Basim. He was actually one of the founders with Sejwad Shahrastani of Muassasat Al-Bayt, the Ihya al-Turath. So it's a foundation that looks after our heritage, like cultural heritage, our hadiths, our ancient books, and they're trying to revive a lot of the lost texts. That's his specialty. One thing I didn't know, which my father told me and my friends when we were going to home for ziyarah. He told us this guy has a lot of spirituality. So go see him. We went to see him, a very old man, could hardly hear us. He gave us very nice advice, and I would never forget that. He said, he related a story. Because Sayyid Jawad Shubha, rahmatullahi alayhi, and for people here, most likely in the older age group, they would know who Sayyid Jawad Shubha is. He was one of the prominent khatibs in the time of the 70s and 80s in Najaf. He said Sayyid Jawad Shubha one day, and after this speech he gave, he was actually arrested, and later was killed by Saddam. One day, one of his sons or something had done something naughty or had, created mischief or something. And people had been telling him off. Like, not telling him off, but saying, how come your son did this? I say, his son, someone related to him, someone is scared, just in case his sons go, why did you badmouth us? I don't mean, that was the story that Sayyid gave us. He went on top of the member, he was really upset. He goes, do you think that my kid is just my kid? My son is the son of media. My son is your son, because you're society. My son is the son of the mosque. My son is the son of the teacher at school. My son is the son of, now let me add to that, social media. My son is the son of internet. My son is the son of everybody. So if I did not produce good kids, then guess what? We as a society have failed. We as a community have failed. So the second aspect of parenting is community parenting. And I can't emphasize this enough. Before, I remember in my parents' age or stage of parenting, I remember, for example, and I'm just going to say it. When I was, for example, at uni, first year uni, second year uni, you want to go places, you want to have fun and this stuff. I used to be scared of taxi drivers. Why? Because they most likely to be Iraqi and they would tell my dad. So every time I go, I would like, oh no, possibly I shouldn't, because the taxi driver would see me. I wasn't doing anything bad, but you know how you're young and this stuff, and just your parents think that you might have done something. Why was I scared of taxi drivers? Because it's the community. It was a prevention. My dad didn't ask any taxi driver to look after me. It's just that he's lucky that almost 90% of taxi drivers in Sydney are either Pakistani or Iraqi. So they most likely know me. So what happened is the community was part of the upbringing of the kids. These days, what's happening is we becoming oversensitive. These days, parents are becoming oversensitive and overprotective. If someone, for example, let's say, and I find out that a lot of the kids here go to the same school, which is this makes it even more relevant. I tell you a story happened in my community. Two gentlemen, their sons go to the same high school, year 7. One of them came to his dad and said the other guy swears at school. So that guy went to have a word with the other Shia brother and told him, look, your son is swearing at school, maybe look at it, This father and his wife decided to cut off this family, and everywhere they go, no, they like too harsh on kids, mu'akkadeen. How do you translate mu'akkadeen? I'm going to be like Muhammad, just throw the Iraqi word and go away. They too sensitive, they too complicated. Like, he came complaining to me, going like, I wanted to help him, to remind him that your kid, who's in year 7, watch out for him. He's still a kid. He might have some friends who are bullies, some friends who are teaching him bad words or bad behavior or whatever. We have to get over this sensitivity. Why? Because if my fellow brother and my fellow sister don't remind me of my kids, how would I know otherwise? A community raises the children, not individuals. Another example, when I got married, I went next to Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim, Allah Qaddis Nafs. And a lot of stories I bring from him because he was a unique man, and anyone knows him knows why I actually quote him a lot. We stayed late. It was Maghrib prayer. We prayed. Between the two prayers, I sat next to him. I said, Sayyid, can you please pray for me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps me with parenting? Because I'm really, really scared. Why, by the way, I was scared? Because I've seen the youth in our community. And I've seen how the different, challenges that parents have. He looked at me and goes, you don't need my prayers, you need very basic formula. I'm quoting scholars on purpose because these are very important lessons for us. Because they are scholars, so they understand what the Great alayhi salam have taught, but also they have a lot of experience. He said, make sure your kids go to their grandparents' house and interact with the rest of the family as much as possible. That's it. This is your formula. Make sure your kids go to their grandfather's house from both sides and interact with them as much as possible. I said, why say you? Because no one can be a parent by themselves. No one can be a parent by themselves. There is a trend in our community, I'm not sure about the UK, but at least in Australia, and I'm sure it's very similar, where I want to be the parent of my kids only by myself. It doesn't work. You really need that family to be part of it. And the grandparents are the best. Because at the end of the day, the same way they brought you, they can help you with bringing up your hearts. We always remember our parents only when babysitters. It's all right, still, don't do that. Babysitters, at least you're doing something about it. And extended family and the community. Bring them bring them to the mosques, bring them to the centers, even if they play. And this is to the center management, the brothers and the sisters who manage the center. It's all right if kids run around. Trust me, that little kid that, mashallah, just recited Quran, that was called Sayyid Basim Hakim, Sayyid Basim Musawi. MashaAllah, how he recited it beautiful. If he wasn't here and exposed every day, would he have been able to recite like this? Would he have been proud to learn Quran like this? This exposure is extremely important. Again, these are all practical parenting. The other advice that Sayyid Ali Khurasani gave us was that when you make any movement at home, always give the reason if it's haram. So for example, if you're watching TV and a song comes up and that song was haram, then he goes, don't just turn off the TV or change the channel. Say, I am changing. Don't tell them, oh, by the way, Zayn, look at me, I'm changing. No. Just do it naturally. But while you're changing the remotes, the TV channel through using the remote, say, I am changing it because this is haram. You're walking somewhere and you see a bottle shop and you don't want to enter. We are not entering the bottle shop because it's haram. We do not consume alcohol because it's haram. I am not smoking because it's whatever. So actively always repeat this without asking the kids to pay attention to it. Becomes natural. Naturally, the kid would know, okay, my dad doesn't do this because it's haram. My mom doesn't do this because it's haram. My mom doesn't go there because it's haram. My mom doesn't buy this because it's haram. For example, you're going and you're looking at the ingredients and there is ham in it. Oh, we're not buying this because it has ham in it and ham is haram. What happens now? You're teaching them about halal and haram and how to make the choice in their daily lives without you actually teaching them. The last thing I wanted to, or this is the advice I wanted to give, and I have actually heard this from one of my colleagues at work. She's a clinical psychologist with a huge experience, and she's actually extremely respected in the profession. She also teaches Islamic psychology. She gave me this advice, and I've tried it with my kids, and it works so perfectly. When teach your kids, and no matter how old they are, 7, again, I emphasized yesterday, 7+. Teach them, if you want to give me something, or like to give me a request, or you want to do something, and you want to ask me for it, write a list and say, I want to go to the theme park. And write the reasons why you want to go to the theme park. You can't write it, jokes. Because I'm going to fun, because I'm going to do this, because I'm going to do that. Then if I reject going there, I have to give you reasons why I'm rejecting. What's happening here? You're getting them to reflect. Muhammad just gave a very beautiful speech about reflection. You're teaching them reflection. You're teaching them negotiation. You're teaching them that every decision I make, or my dad or mom make, it's based on thinking. It's based on evidence. It's not just because my dad's angry today. By the way, that's one of the worst things, especially in Iraqi families. Oh, my dad is in a bad mood today. We are Asari. So I've seen, in some families, usually the cutest of the kids, she goes, usually it's a girl, she goes and asks because everyone else doesn't want to. Let's not create such households, right? That's one. Second aspect of that, if they got angry, and every kid gets angry, their toy was taken and suddenly it's stolen and the whole world is going to burn and the whole planet is having alien warfare because the toy is taken by or the Lego piece is missing. What you do with that is ask them to go in a corner. You're not going in the naughty corner. Just go away, write down or draw or even prepare a speech and come and tell us why you shouldn't have done what you did to your sister. They will be extremely angry, by the way, at the point when you remind them, but if it becomes a habit, and try it for you and the mom, so if you're the mom or the dad, to do it yourselves as well when he gets angry. Alright, I have to go and now take time out, and I have to come and reflect on my anger. What happens is, first of all, you're teaching them the skills to control their anger. Secondly, you're teaching them how to reflect on their own behavior. Thirdly, you're teaching them how to calm themselves down by taking themselves out of the situation. Because 90% of our anger, frustration, because we stay in the same trigger. Take away the trigger, we calm down. Give ourselves time out. Just go away. These are all practical skills that we really, really can benefit from in our parenting. By the way, do they work? I've heard they work. They sometimes work, sometimes they don't. I'm not saying this is the whole formula, but I am saying this is the way we can help each other. I want to relate the upbringing and its effect to who we commemorate tonight, Muslim al-Aqil. Muslim al-Aqil, salamullahi alayh, was the first cousin. It's actually even an English saying. It takes a community to raise a child, isn't it? It takes a community to raise a child. As I told you, it's not an Islamic concept, it's really a human concept. Second, make sure that you have practical parenting. Lead by example. And we said, "Qu anfusakum," start with yourself, protect yourself, وَأَهْلِيكُمْ, and then your families. Second. Thirdly, when you are changing channels, when you're doing anything where you don't want to do it because it's haram, state it. Don't just act it. So then your kids know, my dad chose this, or my mom chose this, or didn't choose this because of a religious barrier, either ethical or actual halal and haram. And then last but not least, you always use tools to help your kids to reflect. These are really the advice I can give. And I was asked by Sayyid to keep the musibah for the chef to the side so that I can concentrate more on parenting. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the status of Muslim Aqeel and with the status of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to allow us the opportunity and the strength and honestly it's patience, a lot of patience, to bring up kids of the future that we can be all proud of, with the blessings of Allah.